Karen yanked my daughter's hair in public. She didn't know I was a Marine officer. I was trained to respond to hostile threats in war zones Afghanistan, Ramadi, the Horn of Africa. But nothing prepared me for the moment I saw a grown woman yank my daughter's hair like she was a disobedient dog. In public, in front of a crowd, at a community fair meant for children. My name is Marcus Dean, Gunnery Sergeant, U.S., Marine Corps, now retired. I'd seen 20 years of sand, steel, and sacrifice. After my last deployment, I promised my wife, Rachel, that I'd hang up the uniform and give our daughter, Ava, a life with less sirens and more swing sets. So we moved. Willow Crest was a quiet town, far from base. We bought a home just outside the city, a small, white house with green shutters and a tire swing. I installed myself. But within weeks of moving in, I began to notice signs, small ones. At first, a woman in a bright vest taking pictures of our lawn. Notes taped to our mailbox about compliance with HOA aesthetics. A drone hovering strangely low over our backyard one Saturday morning. Then came the messages. Your daughter's toys should not be left in view of the road. Please repaint your door to match the community's approved color palette. Unregistered vehicles will be towed. We weren't even in the HOA. Our property bordered the neighborhood, but it wasn't technically within its governance. Still, their self-appointed president, Karen Lancaster, disagreed. A month later, we got invited to the Willow Crest Family Fair. Ava was thrilled. At 5, everything feels magical, especially when cotton candy and face paint are involved. She wore her favorite yellow sundress with a blue ribbon tied in her curls. We arrived at noon, and at first, things were peaceful. Ava played games. Rachel and I walked hand in hand for the first time in weeks. Then I saw Karen. She wore a fluorescent pink vest labeled HOA Child Safety Unit. Her clipboard looked like a police report folder. Her eyes locked on Ava the moment she entered the bounce house. Karen didn't smile. She scowled. And within minutes, she stormed toward the play zone, bypassed 3 other kids, and marched straight to my daughter. What happened next was so fast, I almost didn't believe it. She reached in, grabbed Ava by the hair, and yanked her backward. Ava screamed, stumbling onto the pavement, her bow fluttering to the ground. Karen pointed a bony finger in her face. No running, we have rules, that's strike 2. Little girl, I ran, Rachel screamed, and every other parent froze. I pulled Karen away before she could say another word, holding her by the wrist. Not hard, but firmly enough to make her understand she'd crossed into danger. She tried to jerk back. I am the safety coordinator. She violated the HOA's conduct code. I flashed the badge I hadn't shown in months. Lady, I'm a Marine Corps officer. That little girl is my daughter, and you just assaulted her. Her eyes darted like prey. Then came her mistake. She spat at me and said military types think they're above the law. Not in my community. That's when Rachel, who'd already picked Ava up and held her tight, turned around and took a photo of Karen, of her vest, of the bruising grip she'd left on our daughter's neck. And quietly, Rachel said the words that started the storm. I'm posting this today. That was the moment everything started to unravel. And Karen had no idea just how many people she'd wronged before us. Karen probably thought we'd walk away. She didn't know Rachel's post would hit 1.2 million views in 24 hours. She didn't know I had the training and clearance to retrieve public body cam records, escalate civil harassment cases, and identify imposter authority structures. And she sure as hell didn't know the number of enemies she'd made in the very community she claimed to rule. Because once that photo of her yanking Ava's hair went viral, people started talking. The power of one post. It was just one picture at first, Karen's clenched fist holding Ava's curls mid-tug. Ava's tear-streaked face scrunched in pain. Rachel's hand reaching out of frame. The caption was simple. This woman just assaulted my 5-year-old daughter for running wrong. She is not law enforcement. This is not her child. This is not okay. Willow Crest, Arshan, Ho, assault. Sure, protect our kids by sundown. The comments were in the tens of thousands. Who TF does she think she is? That's assault. Call the police and a lawyer. You're not alone. She did something similar to my son last year. I was too afraid to speak out. And there it was, the crack. A mother named Elena Morales DM'd us. She snatched a fidget spinner from my autistic son last summer. Called it a weapon. He cried for hours. Another resident, Jordan Pierce, replied publicly. She fined us $500 for our son's wheelchair ramp. Said it violated visual harmony. We didn't even live in the HOA zone. It was like floodgates had opened. Karen wasn't a neighborhood protector. She was a neighborhood tyrant, and her HOA a fake, a front, digging into the fake. HOA, I already had suspicions from when we moved in. Our home sat adjacent to Willow Crest, but we were legally outside the HOA boundary confirmed by the original deed and a land surveyor's report. But Karen had made it her mission to extend power beyond any legal limit. That weekend, I ran a search through the state's Public Business Entity Registry. The Willow Crest Family Homeowners Association had been inactive since 2015, but they were still issuing printed citations, holding mandatory meetings, and collecting annual safety dues through Venmo. All funds routed to a personal account listed as K. Lancaster Civic Fund. Fraud. Not just morally wrong, legally criminal. I compiled a dossier and brought it to a friend from JAG, my old military law unit. He confirmed it. She's impersonating a civil authority body and collecting funds under false pretenses. Rachel looked at me that night across the dinner table. Ava was coloring with her good hand, the other still red from Karen's grab. Can we fight this, she asked. I nodded. No, I said. We can end this. The neighborhood wakes up. We organized a town safety meeting, except we didn't go through the HOA. We went through the county sheriff's liaison office. We held it in a public library, booked legally, accessible to all. Over 80 people showed up, and we asked one question: have you ever been harassed, fined, or intimidated by Karen Lancaster or anyone claiming to represent the Willow Crest HOA? Hands went up. Dozens. Parents, veterans, disabled residents, new immigrants, teenagers. One woman was issued a curfew violation for walking her dog after 9 p.m. A teenage boy was threatened with suspension of rights for parking his moped in the visitor's lot. A family with a deaf child had been removed from the HOA Halloween parade because their kid used sign language too aggressively. These were not isolated incidents. They were systemic. We passed out complaint forms that night, real legal affidavits. My JAG buddy helped review them all. By the end of the week, we had 31 formal statements of harassment, discrimination, and unauthorized financial collection. I sent the full dossier to the district attorney's public fraud division, and I sent another copy to Channel 5 Investigates. Karen strikes back and fails. The next day, Karen sent a letter to our home, a printed citation. Per Willow Crest child safety regulations, your daughter Ava Dean is banned from all community events for repeated misconduct. Future trespass may result in escalation to HOA enforcement. I nearly laughed. Then I turned the letter over and noticed the seal. It had an eagle in the center. The words Willow Crest Community Enforcement Unit. She designed it to look like a federal agency. That was impersonation. Rachel posted the letter online. It went viral again. This time, it caught national attention. Good Morning America contacted us. So did a retired Supreme Court clerk. Karen finally made a statement on the HOA's Facebook page. I was only doing what's necessary. These people have no respect for rules. They're not real residents. They don't belong here. And that line, "they don't belong here," was her death sentence. Because when Karen tried to divide the neighborhood unified, Ava's strength becomes a symbol. That weekend, neighbors surprised us. They lined the sidewalks with yellow ribbons the color of Ava's bow. Some taped notes to our door. Your daughter is stronger than she knows. We're with you. Karen doesn't speak for us. One hair pulled, 100 raised voices. We were overwhelmed. Even Ava, only 5, seemed to understand something important had shifted. She walked into the same park Karen had once patrolled, and this time, she ran. Freely. Rachel cried. I stood silent, fists clenched not in anger, but pride. We weren't victims. We were leaders now. It wasn't just personal anymore. Karen's obsession with control, her fake citations, her assaults, her made-up child safety codes was just the surface. As I dug deeper with the help of my legal contacts, the picture got clearer, darker, and more deliberate. This wasn't just a power trip. This was a con. My contact at the district attorney's office, James Tran, handed me a manila envelope one morning at the county building. Inside were 3 years' worth of flagged transaction reports tied to an account under W.C. Civic Services, LLC, a shell corporation registered to Karen Lancaster at a P.O. box in town. That same P.O. box was listed as the billing address on every fine HOA citation and safety notice the neighborhood had received since 2020. She wasn't just issuing threats, she was profiting from them. Noise violations billed at $75 per incident. Decorative noncompliance tickets $120. Unauthorized child behavior disruption fines $150. Who charged residents for a kid having a meltdown? Karen did. And she'd collected over $61,000 in fake fines over 3 years. Not a cent went toward community improvements. No meetings, no votes, no board members besides 2 of her friends who lived out of state. But it got worse. James showed me a report from a Vietnamese couple, Ann and Lien Nguyen, who had been fined 5 times for unsightly mobility devices in front of their garage. Their daughter, Lynn, used a pediatric walker. Karen had photographed the device, then claimed it violated visibility and uniformity codes. Lien, who didn't speak fluent English, paid the fine every single time. When we showed them the public fraud records, Lien broke down and said, "We thought maybe we did something wrong." She said, "We embarrassed the block." I felt my chest tighten like armor locking in. I had a battle now. I scheduled a press conference outside Willowcrest Community Clubhouse. I called in favors from old friends, one who worked PR for the State Veterans Affairs Office, another who ran security for the county courthouse. Within 48 hours, we had cameras, reporters, and over 100 residents in folding chairs, all waiting. Rachel stood beside me. Ava was with a friend across the street, and I walked up to the podium in full dress blues, not to intimidate, but to send a message. I fought to protect this country. I will not watch it be torn apart by lies at home. I held up a printout of Karen's fake citation letter, then her LLC registration, then photos of the bruises on Ava's neck, then a list of 31 neighborhood victims. "This isn't a misunderstanding," I said into the microphone. "It's not a neighbor being overzealous. This is a deliberate scheme of fear, discrimination, and fraud. And today, it ends." Applause roared like thunder. Karen showed up halfway through, in sunglasses, arms crossed, face hard. She stood in the crowd for 3 minutes, then shoved her way to the front and shouted, "You're all weak. You let brats destroy our streets. I'm the only one who tried to preserve this place." I stepped down from the podium, face to face. "You're not a leader," I said. "You're a bully with a clipboard." The press captured the moment perfectly. My Marine insignia gleaming, her laminated badge dangling crookedly, her hands shaking. Then Rachel stepped forward with the final blow. "Karen, we filed civil assault charges. You're being investigated for fraud, and the sheriff's department. They're standing right behind you." Karen turned. 2 deputies stepped forward. Calm, firm. "You're under arrest for impersonation of a public official and misdemeanor assault on a minor," Karen screamed as they cuffed her. "I built this neighborhood. I protected your children." "No," Rachel whispered. "You hurt ours." Karen's arrest aired that night. It hit local news, then state media. Then it made national headlines. Fake HOA president arrested for assaulting child, running fraud ring. Suddenly, the country was watching, and something even more powerful happened. People from other towns, other states, began sharing their Karen stories. Fake HOAs, rogue neighborhood watch leaders, unofficial fines, racist rules, disability shaming. We had sparked something. 1 week later, we held the Yellow Ribbon March through Willow Crest, not in protest, in pride. Children wore ribbons in their hair and on their wheelchairs, walkers, scooters. Parents marched with signs, "Inclusion is not optional. Respect is louder than fear." My daughter runs freely now. Ava walked at the front, strong, unafraid, her curls bouncing. She paused mid-walk, looked up at me, and whispered, "Daddy, she's gone now." "Right?" I smiled. "Yeah, baby, she's gone." Karen Lancaster stood in court 2 weeks later, flanked by a public defender, her pink HOA vest notably absent. The courtroom was packed. I wore a simple dress shirt, no medals, no uniform. I didn't need it, because this wasn't a battle of weapons anymore. It was a battle for dignity. The judge, a calm but sharp-eyed woman named Judge Cynthia Reyes, opened the session by listing out the charges: assault on a minor, criminal impersonation of a public official, operating a fraudulent civil organization, collection of unauthorized funds, harassment with intent to discriminate. Karen's lawyer requested leniency, claimed she was misunderstood, that she meant well, that she had no criminal intent. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ms. Lancaster issued over $60,000 in fake fines. She assaulted a 5-year-old girl, and she weaponized a fake title to intimidate veterans, immigrants, and disabled children. That is not confusion. That is abuse of power. Karen still didn't look sorry. She just looked exposed. Then came the testimonies. Elena Morales spoke first. She brought a laminated photo of her autistic son holding the broken fidget spinner Karen had slapped out of his hand. "I was afraid to speak up," she said, voice trembling, "because I thought maybe I was the problem. I'm not." "She is." Min Nguyen spoke next. His voice was calm, but each word struck like steel. "She told us we made the neighborhood look foreign. Because of our daughter's walker, I didn't say anything for a year. Now I say everything." Then Rachel took the stand. She held up Ava's yellow ribbon, the one Karen tore from her head that day. "This is all our daughter remembers from her first community fair. Not the games, not the candy, just pain. From a stranger who thought her clipboard meant control." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Judge Reyes didn't hesitate. Karen was sentenced to 18 months of probation, 400 hours of community service, half of which would be served in disability education and child development programs, restitution of all fines collected under false HOA pretenses, mandatory psychiatric evaluation, and most importantly, a lifetime ban from holding any position of civic, neighborhood, or enforcement authority in the state of California. The judge closed with a statement that would later go viral. "Power without accountability is a weapon. Ms. Lancaster used it to shame, silence, and hurt. We are not punishing her for being strict. We are holding her accountable for being cruel." Karen was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something more powerful than justice: relief. The county officially dissolved the Willowcrest HOA 2 weeks after the sentencing. Since it hadn't been legally recognized for years, the process was swift. What followed was something better than punishment: rebuilding. We formed a volunteer resident committee, not an HOA, not a board, but a collaborative council. Every neighbor had a voice. Every meeting was open. Every rule had to be agreed upon, not enforced by one person in a vest. Bridget led the Safe Play initiative. Min organized a multilingual welcome team. Elena and I co-led an inclusion task force that helped revise local park signage, install sensory-friendly zones, and rewrite neighborhood welcome packets to include disability and cultural respect resources. We replaced Karen's old metal citation zone signs with laminated banners that read, "Kindness is our policy. You belong here." The next spring, the Willowcrest Community Fair returned, but this time, it wasn't run by a fraud in a vest. It was run by the parents who had been silenced. Ava wore the same yellow dress, same blue ribbon. Only this time, it stayed in her hair the whole day. She played, she danced, she ran, and at one point, she tugged my hand and whispered, "Daddy, no one's mad today." I knelt and said, "No, sweetheart, everyone's proud." We had bounce houses, food trucks, a petting zoo, and a booth that let kids decorate their own toy badges. Ava made one and taped it to her dress. It said "Peace Officer." Within months, communities from across the state reached out. People wanted our handbook on how to dismantle toxic HOA structures. We shared everything free of charge. A local senator introduced the Neighborhood Oversight and Fraud Prevention Act, modeled in part after Karen's arrest and our public efforts. What started as a hair-pulling incident at a county fair became a statewide movement on reform, transparency, and equity in neighborhood associations. All because one little girl refused to be silent, and because one Marine father remembered that justice is something you protect at home. 2. It's been a year since Karen Lancaster pulled my daughter's hair at the Willowcrest Community Fair, 12 months since she was arrested, 365 days since this quiet neighborhood, built on silence and fear, finally found its voice. And I'll say this, as a Marine, as a father, as a man who has seen war, this was a victory. Ava's ribbon now sits framed on our living room wall, next to a certificate she received from the State Office of Child Advocacy. It reads, "For courage in the face of injustice, for speaking without words when the world needed to listen." She doesn't remember everything Karen said, but she remembers what happened afterward. The marches, the yellow ribbons, the kids clapping when she stepped back into the park, the letters, dozens from other children. Some said thank you. Some said, "You helped me feel brave." Some just drew stars and wrote her name in crayon. That's when it hit me. Sometimes our children become the leaders we never expected. 6 months after Karen's sentencing, we hosted a statewide town hall in Sacramento. I wasn't wearing my medal. I didn't need them. Instead, I wore a pin Ava made, just a paper clip bent into the shape of a ribbon. At the podium, I said, "We have laws for corporations. We have oversight for law enforcement. But who watches the people with clipboards and fake rules? Who protects the child in the bounce house?" I told them about Elena's son, about Min's daughter, about Ava's scream on a sunny afternoon in front of a cotton candy booth. And then I said the truth that shook the room. We didn't fight back because we were angry. We fought back because we were tired of watching good people shrink. A week later, the Neighborhood Accountability and Oversight Act passed committee with unanimous support. 3 months ago, I received a letter from prison. Karen Lancaster's handwriting was tight and precise, like a woman is still trying to control something, maybe herself. "Mr. Dean, I've had time to reflect. I used power because I didn't know how to ask for help. I saw rules as safety. I confused order with worth. I don't ask for forgiveness. I wouldn't accept it if I were you. But I wanted you to know this: your daughter didn't just change my life. She broke it open. Tell her thank you." Karen, I didn't write back. Not because I was bitter, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Willow Crest is a different place now. There's no HOA, just a community commons group, where decisions are made by vote, not fear. The park has a new name, Ava's Field. Every October, we hold Ribbons and Rights Day, where families share their stories, kids make their own badges, and we teach neighborhood leadership grounded in empathy. And this year, Ava was asked to lead the opening parade. She stood at the front holding a handmade sign, "I run because I can." And every child followed, to every father, mother, neighbor, or guardian reading this. You do not need to be a Marine to stand tall. You don't need medals to protect your child. You need conviction. You need truth. You need the refusal to let silence win, because sometimes it's just one scream in the middle of a fairground that breaks the spell. Sometimes it's a 5-year-old with curls and courage. Sometimes it's you. If you've ever stayed quiet because it felt easier, if you've ever watched someone get hurt by fake rules, fake power, or fake authority, speak now, tell your story, defend the vulnerable, question unchecked power, and above all, never forget that justice belongs to all of us. Not just the loudest voice, the richest homeowner, or the one in the fanciest vest. Share this story, talk about it, start a conversation, Because every time you do, you make room for someone like Ava to run freely again.